Hola, muy buenos días. Bienvenidos otra vez a la última sesión de todo este encuentro. Es un gran honor haber trabajado con el comité científico, con el equipo técnico que nos apoyó en toda esta jornada, pero sobre todo a ustedes que han sido los espectadores que nos han acompañado, han hecho preguntas y de alguna manera han estado comunicándose con nosotros a través de las múltiples redes que tenemos en Internet. Para terminar esta sesión del día de hoy, voy a presentar a dos colegas con los cuales he trabajado continuamente a lo largo de los años y ha sido un gran placer porque de alguna u otra manera han sido mis mentores y de alguna u otra manera creo que es importante hacer énfasis en el trabajo que han realizado como colectivos, como organizaciones dedicadas a la investigación y a la producción del audio. Voy a presentar primero a Linda Keefe. La doctora Linda Keefe es una artista de sonido que vive en Edimburgo, Escocia. Es directora de la Escuela de Arte de Edimburgo College of Art. Es fundadora de la organización Women in Sound, Women on Sound, WISWOS, y editora en jefe de Interfaz Journal, una revista de culturas de audio. Fue cofundadora de la Asociación Irlandesa de Ciencia y Tecnología del Sonido en 2009 y fue presidenta del 2015 al 2017. Keefe ha tenido obras realizadas y expuestas en Asia, Estados Unidos, Brasil, Canadá y Europa. En el 2018 recibió el Premio de Viaje Internacional de Arts and Council of England para emprender un gran proyecto de investigación que incluyó una gira por Brasil, dando charlas, actuaciones y organización de talleres, simposios y actividades de divulgación. Durante este tiempo realizó dos álbumes, álbum 1 y 2, y publicó un artículo, Applying Feminist Methodologies in the Sound and Sonic Arts, Sound Walking as a Process. Y también voy a presentar el trabajo de Eric Leonardson, que ya lo conocemos un poco de su trabajo y también nos acompañó en sesiones previas, pero ahora nos va a hablar también del World Listening Project. Eric Leonardson es un artista de audio con sede en Chicago. Se desempeña como director ejecutivo del World Listening Project y es fundador y copresidente de la Sociedad del Medio Oeste de la Ecología Acústica y presidente del Foro Mundial para la Ecología Acústica. Es profesor asociado adjunto de la Escuela del Instituto de Arte de Chicago. Como intérprete y compositor, también como diseñador de sonido, Leonardson creó sonido con la compañía de teatro físico Plasticine de 1995 al 2012 con sede en Chicago. Leonardson se presenta internacionalmente con Springboard, un instrumento de fabricación propia construido en 1994 y que a menudo presenta con la ecología acústica en nuevos espacios públicos. En 1916 fue uno de los artistas seleccionados por el Chicago Park District y Trust of Public Land para inaugurar la Ruta 606 Open Air y sus trabajos para la radio, Coincidencia y Control en el 2015 y Dancing Walls in the Prairie en el 2007, que se transmitieron en Kunst Radio en ORF Viena. Y bueno, sin más por añadir en estas biografías, voy a dar paso a Linda para que nos pueda comentar más acerca de su iniciativa dentro de WISWOS. Gracias, Linda.
Okay, just going to share my screen now. Hi, thank you. I'm delighted to be asked to present for this final day of the conference. It's a privilege to be asked. And I'm really delighted to talk about an organization that I founded 5 years ago now, the Women in Sound, Women on Sound organization. This particular organization was developed in response to a lack of visibility of women in sounds at events that I and other women had been attending for a number of years. And it came about as a move to the UK, where again I witnessed, after attending conferences, symposiums, performance events, etc., that there was such a low visibility of women, women of color as well, absent from the discussions and participation and networking opportunities that are afforded in these particular spaces when one is welcomed or part of that kind of community. So in 2015, I started to network with a number of women and organizations to talk about the beginning of a moment where we could bring women together from all over to talk about their practices, and their practices in the most widest sense of engaging with sound in some way. So in 2015, we created the Women in Sound, Women on Sound Symposium, our first symposium, where we simply put out a call asking women to submit the opportunity to present a paper, an art installation, or a concert. The idea was that we weren't looking for a particular type of women or a particular type of relationship with sound. We wanted to see all the possible ways in which women were working in the field. And we also wanted to provide a space for women to perhaps network with each other, to share what it is they're doing, and perhaps create possible future collaborative opportunities. Okay. So for this first event, we had a very large exhibition and performance space, and a number of women present papers on a diverse range of practices. We also had women travel from all over the world. We were actually quite shocked. At the time, I had no funding. This was actually funded by my savings. In order to do the catering, I actually used up my savings to pay for people to eat. But nevertheless, we had women travel from the US, Latin America, Europe, and all over the UK, coming together to share their practices. So we had women who worked in radio as studio engineers, as sociologists, anthropologists, performance artists, composers, and so on. And what it highlighted was the very diverse practices women had in the area of sound and technology and music. It also allowed for conversation to happen. So during this symposium, a number of different moments of talking about what it was to be a woman in sound emerged. And one of the key terminologies, one of the key ideas that kept emerging in different groups and then would coalesce in larger conversations was education. How had they come to be women working in sound? And what were the restrictions in enabling them to be women working in sound and technology? And education seemed to be a key factor. You know, where they felt they were allowed to study, where it was expected that women would train in when it came to the arts, sound, engineering, and music. And what was emerging from those conversations was that there wasn't a sense that, you know, third level education or even music technology taught in secondary school was accessible or open to women. So following from that event, we created a second symposium, which we called Educating Girls on Sound. And for this symposium, we actually received funding to create a logo and to start constructing a website. So to bring all of the ideas and information that we were collecting and all the documentation we were making and put it into one shared space. But for this particular symposium event, it was not simply just to present work, but to actually formalize discussions around the idea of education, women, and sound and technology. So for this, we brought in specialist educators in instrument building. We brought in performers and composers who work in education, and we created a series of focus group sessions where we had lists of questions that we generated within these circles of people who attended to ask how were they educated, who taught them, were they self-taught, what way would they like to be educated, what way would make this field of the arts more accessible to women. And in fact, we had a really diverse group of people at the second symposium. We had secondary school teachers, we had teenage girls, we had a large group of teenage girls participating, and then practitioners in the area of music, sound, and technology. And this generated a huge body of information that was extremely informative about how women, in a sense, are mostly self-taught, or they do peer-to-peer sharing, or other different on-the-edge forms of education. And so we wanted to think about how we could address that, how we could make education more centrally accessible to women going forward. So in 2017, we received funding from the Research in a Box organization to develop this toolkit that would go out to schools. And in this box would be equipment made by women to build their own instruments, as well as a number of other objects and artifacts. So I'm just going to click into the website. I'm just going to come out of here. And so the WISWOS website then also hosted online learning spaces and tools. So we had tutorial videos that were created by women on working in different areas of sound. So learning to solder your own noisemaker, the history of women in experimental sound, live sound and sound engineering, and a tutorial with live coding for Sonic Pi. So let's go back to PowerPoint. So we engaged with some schools and who could borrow this box and take it in to work with teenagers and to work with secondary school teachers. But we found a strong level of resistance within schools because most of the teachers were telling us that by the time girls got to second level education, they already didn't want to engage with technology and sound. And so again, we needed to ask questions about why this is. At what point are women thinking that they cannot engage with technology, with engineering, and then with any other area connected to those fields, whether it was sound, music, or some other subject. So in 2018, WISWOS network members, myself, Isabel Noguera, and Rebecca Collins, started a 7-week project in Porto Alegre in Brazil. So this is a region in the southern part of Brazil. And we start because the issue of participation and visibility is quite global, and we'd found that in the conversations we'd had with women. And Isabel, who came from Brazil and had also attended one of the first WISWOS symposiums, thought that maybe this was the question that we could ask in this region first. So we traveled to Brazil and we started a number of workshops with women working in sound, technology, and performance to ask the same questions. When did they start engaging in technology? What way did they feel included or excluded when it came to performance, installation art, working as audio engineers, and so on? And started to collect, again, data about, again, similar ways of being self-taught, peer-to-peer sharing, online learning, and so on. We developed a number of events to explore the idea of gender and sound and listening, to work with these different women. And we also, sorry, that slide is a little bit out of order. We also created a number of events for thinking about how sound and technology is gendered, and brought women out into public spaces to explore this in different methodologies that myself and Isabel had developed. So in this, we're doing some sound walking and deep listening meditations in the region with these women, these female composers and performers. And afterwards, we came back and they created a number of sound maps about what it meant to hear a space, to think about sound as gendered, and then to think about how that might impact on their use of sound as a medium, working in the field of performance and technology. And these conversations were quite vital and really quite interesting. We had a participant who was who had a transgender person who had transitioned to a woman, and talked about how as before they had transitioned, when they were seen as a boy by their parents, the focus had been on technology, technology and education, the purchasing of technology for them. And once they had transitioned, their parent, still knowing that their child was interested in music, pushed them to study acoustic instrumentation and pushed them away from technology, stating that it wasn't really an area for women to be pursuing. We also looked at making graphic scores and performing them. Then we started talking to women mentors in the same region in Porto Alegre. So we start working with women who were teaching performance, teaching music technology, and having conversations about why they're focusing just on women, what it took to do this. So for example, we have this woman here who's been teaching drumming for women in this region for years. She's a jazz drummer. She talked about how she felt excluded most of her life as a female jazz percussionist, and it was always this constant battle to be seen as an expert in her field. And she wanted to kind of give women a sense of their potential. So she started a number of batuca drumming workshops where she trained women in batuca performance, which is traditionally in Brazil performed by men, but also gave them a sense of professionalism by actually having them perform at festivals and conferences and performance venues. But the women shared with us afterwards how still there was resistance and a lack of acceptance of them being seen as professional percussionists in this area. We also worked in schools. We start looking at young women and thinking about women, these young girls in the secondary schools engaging with sound and technology, but we also wanted to work explicitly with teachers. What we had found with the Research in a Box project in the UK was that we hadn't started with teachers, and we felt it was very important to actually include them in the conversation. And in fact, out of these conversations, again, arose questions we hadn't considered. So for example, in our workshops with teachers, they informed us that, a lot of them hadn't studied ideas around feminist pedagogy and feminist education, or had time to think about the curriculum and if the curriculum was weighted towards a more masculine or patriarchal viewpoint in relation to what was being taught at school. And in fact, they would appreciate workshops on thinking about pedagogy, gender equality, and then applying that approach to whatever it was they were teaching, whether it was biology, literature, or technology. So this is myself and Isabel and Rebecca working with these groups of young women. And this is Rebecca Collins talking them through thinking about walking through spaces and investigating where gender impacts on their perception of sound within the school. So this is within the school in Porto Alegre. And following this, they talked about the ideas about what is a gendered space, and then what is a gendered sound, and what is the relationship to technology. And they're having a very lively debate about these concepts, which was really, really valuable. Additionally, one of the other areas that we explored during this engagement in Brazil was performing with other women. It was really important to think about this notion of peer-to-peer learning and peer-to-peer sharing, because again, this was coming up again and again. But actually what we found in conversations with women in both the UK and Brazil was that usually the peer-to-peer learning and sharing was happening with boyfriends or male friends who were audio engineers or worked in coding. But very rarely were they sharing with other women, and mostly it was because they thought there weren't other women. working in the same areas that they were working in. So we actually created several events where we brought women together with what they thought was their expertise in sound and technology, to share that with other women so that they could start to think of each other as a potential networking opportunity. And that actually turned out to be an excellent experience. And we have heard later on that, you know, women have gone on to partner in different projects as well as different performance opportunities. So that was really wonderful. Myself and Isabel, seen here on the left of the screen, also collaborated together on a number of projects following from this event, one of which is Women in Space. So this is a project that we started with Sophia Lycouris, who is a performance artist based in Edinburgh, a Greek performance artist and choreographer. And we're looking at the idea of post-colonial spaces and thinking about the occupation, the post-colonial occupation by women of these spaces. And so we've begun a separate project which looks at the idea of space and technology and gender and inclusion. So the final project that myself and Isabel are currently working on as well is a book, an edited book to be published by Routledge in 2021, titled The Body in Sound, Music and Performance. So one of the things that emerged throughout our conversations over the past 5 years, particularly myself and Isabel, was the idea of the body as a space for which women are central when it comes to music technology and performance. And we found that because most women shared with us that they had learned in this peer-to-peer way or being self-taught, that a lot of the time their way of thinking about themselves as artists, performance artists, was as a body first. So thinking about their gender and the potential of their body as a performing object. And we kind of found that that concept, that ontology of thinking about sound and performance, of women having a central place in this, was missing. So we decided that we would gather a number of writers together, all women, to talk about this idea of the body in sound, music and performance. So we are currently working with 27 women who are writing in this area. The focus of the publication is not on gender. It is just on the body in sound, music and performance, and it just so happens that all of those people writing and contributing to this ontology or practice are women. So that's what we're currently doing at the moment. So I just want to thank you very much for this opportunity to present Women in Sound. And again, I'm really delighted to have been invited to present at this conference. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Linda. Creo que esta presentación nos da también hincapié, nos da paso para hablar ahora también de una organización en la cual nosotros tres, los tres presentadores de esta charla, somos parte, directores de board directors, and I'm going to speak now in English so also they can understand. We are three of us part of the board of directors of the World Listening Project, which is also another organization that advocates to the exercise of listening. And also it's an international effort to connect through this activity of the sound of production, but also as a collective activity or an exercise. And therefore, I'm very, very happy to introduce now Eric, who is going to now talk and speak and connect through this educational, but not only through pedagogical practices, but also to artistic practices, the work that the World Listening Project is creating and advocating. And I pass to you, Eric.
Okay, thank you so much, Amanda. And thank you, Linda. Your talk, your presentation was fascinating, and it's great that we could all be together with each other, but to have this special opportunity, this honor to join everyone else that is here, and whoever is not here at the moment, I would just say, as you look at the recorded version of this talk, that it is a great opportunity, and I hope the information gets spread far and wide, and that everyone will consider our efforts, our messages, and join in the effort. Let me switch over to my presentation right now to tell you all about the World Listening Project here. So, 1 second, please. Here we go. So, the World Listening Project started off in 2008 amongst a group of artists in Chicago. And essentially, it's an artist-run effort that's devoted to fostering understanding of the world and its natural environment, its societies, its cultures, through the practices of listening and field recording. And since then, we've been focused mainly on promoting World Listening Day. The first one happened in the year 2010, and it was conceived as an international day of awareness for the burgeoning and diversifying interests in our changing acoustic environment through local and online activities. And so the date of July 18th was chosen because it honors the renowned Canadian composer, music educator, author, R. Murray Schafer on his birthday. And so the first World Listening Day was established through just, I guess, peer-to-peer communications. And we were able to gain through our network a phenomenal amount of interest. And that proved to us that it was really a smart idea, that it was an idea that attracted a lot of people. It wasn't born from us, but it was born from a global network and interpreted in different ways. And so we've done it again year after year since 2010 as a global participatory event. And so basically we just invite people, individuals, organizations, institutions to participate. And so in this slide here, you can see, I hope, that each year we do the announcement, the invitation, and each event is self-organized. Again, it can be from something very private and personal to a very public and highly organized open event for local audiences. It's all based on the resources of the individuals who decide to participate. So we think of ourselves, we being the World Listening Project, as facilitators. We put out the call for World Listening Day, and then we do what we can to aggregate participation and help connect people in this network to help them develop and share their own initiatives with the growing community. So this year, we're looking forward to next year, in fact, 2021. And we just announced last week the theme for World Listening Day 2021. We have a theme for each year. That was a new facet. And I think that the theme is really important in terms of raising awareness of and interest in something that might tend to be a more abstract concept, that being listening. So the theme helps generate curiosity and interest and more involvement. We reached out to Raquel Castro, who's a Portuguese filmmaker, curator, organizer of important events like the Lisboa SOA Sound Art Festivals, and the past 2 iterations of the Invisible Places conference. The first one of those took place in 2014, and then the last one was in 2017. And we hope when the conditions around the pandemic make it safe, that we'll be having a third one in the not too distant future. So the theme for World Listening Day 2021 is the unquiet earth. And when we select a theme creator, we ask them to come up with a statement to help communicate the underlying ideas of the theme, and I'll try to read those for you. So Raquel wrote that in 2020, we were forced to pause by an invisible virus. This brought countless consequences to the environment and to the sonic environment in particular. New acoustic horizons emerged, signaling times of unquietness and global change and requiring our listening awareness to evolve. The theme for 2021, The Unquiet Earth, is an invitation to reflect on and engage with the constant murmur of the earth, sounds beyond the threshold of human hearing, to remind ourselves that we share this mysterious and awesome planet. Small, hidden, subterranean, aerial, underwater, infra and ultrasonic sounds, inaudible to the naked ear, can bring a new, potentially hopeful perspective on the future of the planet and humanity. Listening as activism encourages us to question our attitudes as listeners as we aim to construct a more inclusive and empathetic new world. Join the unquiet revolution. So, a little bit about the World Listening Project itself. We're a nonprofit organization. We're registered in the United States as a tax-exempt organization. That makes us eligible for some fundraising, some grants, and we also have a board of directors. At this time, there are 9 of us that are all artists ourselves. Those include Norman W. Long from Chicago, Amika Agbo from Berlin, Linda O'Keefe, who just spoke before me over in Edinburgh, Linda Barclay, who spoke yesterday, part of the Australian Forum for Acoustic Ecology, the Biosphere Soundscapes Project, and the World Forum for Acoustic Ecology. Catherine Krause, who's a marketer and co-partner in the Wild Sanctuary effort with Bernie Krause, and creator of the 2020 theme for World Listening Day, The Collective Field. Gurkhan Michi from Indianapolis, Indiana, teaching at Heron School of Design. Dan Gotston, creator of World Listening Day, living in Florida. Myself and Amanda Gutierrez, who is one of the members of the scientific committee for the Mexico Acoustic Ecology Network, and our host for this session here. So as my time is running out, let me just say that we are looking for new leadership. We hope you can help us connect and inspire people to get involved in World Listening Project, to share recordings from past World Listening Days. You can follow our social media links in SoundCloud, Vimeo, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So you can check out all of these platforms, share and tag online and connect with our community. We're also seeking volunteers to help steward the World Listening Project's many communications programs and be a more effective leader in coordinating and connecting people in our broad interdisciplinary, multilingual and multi-generational community. So I hope you will join us in the effort. And with that, I thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Eric, and thank you so much, Linda. I think this conversation between all the these two amazing organizations and efforts are going to be a great platform for all the viewers that are also they are interested to participate with us in REA. So, and I also thank you all the public that join us for all these days. This is the conclusion right now of all the presentations. Thank you. And now we're going to have our closing ceremony of this event at 4 p.m. The next meeting that we will have with the scientific committee has decided to make it on closed doors, meaning it's going to be only for us right now, because we have to talk about certain agreements, and we will agree for a date where new members, new people can join us, and we will announce that date when Eric Leonardson is going to join us again at 4 p.m. So, yes. Entonces, voy a repetir rápidamente. A las 4 se va a celebrar ya la clausura de este evento. Están todos bienvenidos a acompañarnos a las 4 p.m. Se realizará la transmisión. Eric nos va a acompañar a cerrar. Y pues muchas gracias. Ana Mora en el chat nos dice que son proyectos maravillosos, wonderful projects, Linda and Eric. And si están interesados en participar en estos proyectos, voy a dejar los links en el canal de YouTube, y con mucho gusto se podrán poner en contacto también. Con mucho gusto yo puedo ponerlos en contacto. Y pues muchas gracias por acompañarnos, y nos vemos muy pronto a las 4 p.m. para la clausura de este gran evento. Muchas gracias al equipo de producción, muchas gracias a todo el equipo de REA. Hasta luego.